This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. For those of you who have been following the news about the digital passport over the last few years, we know they obviously created something so that they could have an excuse for the digital passport. But for those of you keeping an eye on crypto, the digital passport, and of course the universal basic income, well, dream come true for those of you who actually want the mark of the beast, who actually want this type of technology, because WorldCoin has finally launched. That's right, WorldCoin. A lot of people aren't even familiar with WorldCoin, but they've been working at this for years now. And of course, conveniently, they have a giant orb, which looks like an eyeball, but that's just a coincidence too. That scans your eyeball, just like out of Minority Report and all the other predictive programming we've seen over the years. And this, of course, is the type of technology that leads to all systems of control. And now it's here. And before I show you the clips, I just want to remind everyone, please subscribe to my other two channels if you haven't yet. They are linked below. And of course, anyone out there who wants to support this work, you can do so through Patreon. I created a Patreon for the End of the Beginning channel because I constantly have to do this. It's just really unbelievable. But they're constantly attacking my work, attacking my time, which is what's most annoying, that I have to put time into building channels, et cetera, even though I'm a new YouTuber, wink, wink. So those are all linked below, but at the very least, please make sure you sub to my other channels. So we're going to take a deep dive and a look at this new control technology that, of course, gets marketed as unique. Listen to the trigger words that they use. Things like, oh, well, it's unique. It's unique to you. It'll be just you. It'll be all about you and your needs and what personifies you the best and what, you like, and you, and you, and you, and you. And really, it's about them controlling you. Take a look.
So, Joe, this is an eyeball scanning project. It creates a digital identity, proof of personhood, the company says. But is this basically just the ultimate hype sandwich, crypto and AI smashed together?
It kind of is. I've been so fascinated by this company for years since it's launched, because the idea that we're all going to get this big orb, and they have this multi-pound orb, and I've held it, and it's going to scan your eyeball, and it's going to create a unique form of identity, and you're going to get a universal basic income through that identity, and it's related to crypto on as well. It's everything, as you said, this sort of maybe like a hype sandwich. But on the other hand, when you think about AI and you think about the various risks, whether it's sort of disruption to jobs, or the idea that an AI could, say, impersonate a person or impersonate a loved one, et cetera, are you really the person that you claim to are? It's kind of like a very interesting, ambitious problem that they've tackled. So even as weird as it sounds and everything, I'm kind of just absolutely fascinated to see where it goes.
Speaking of the risks here, what are the security risks of the eyeball scanning that is happening here, and tying it to your economic future? Are there real concerns behind the project?
Absolutely. They're scanning your eyeball. Obviously, there have been some criticisms about privacy and whether there's a database. They claim that there will be none, that all of the logic is not in some centralized database like, say, the Social Security Administration, which has a database of everyone's Social Security number, that it's this unique hash, that all the logic is in
more or less hackable, the Social Security network or the WorldCoin.
Right, yeah, and they say no, and that they have 13 ways of scanning your eyeballs, so they could tell maybe if you're under duress, if someone's put your face in front of one of these scans or something. But it's pretty sci-fi stuff, and I don't think anyone really knows where it's ultimately going to go. It's just so weird and fascinating.
Yeah, and that's that technology itself, but then there also is the token that had such a phenomenal debut yesterday, Joe. But it's worth noting, you can't trade it in the U.S. It's just another example of the regulatory environment here limiting what people can do. Yeah,
there's regulatory elements. And there's also the question of why do we need a token associated with it? Feels very 2021 or 2020. Their argument would be that if you're going to have this sort of system of identity that everyone is one day going to depend on in order to prove their humanhood, collect their UBI because the AI put us out of a job, etc., then it has to be distributed and distributed governance, and it can't just be controlled by one company that is connected to Sam Altman, etc. So of course, one argument that they would make is that, well, this is what crypto is good for, distributed governance, et cetera. On the other hand, people look at this coin and they say, oh, there's like really low float, and it's just a classic thing where because there's so much hype and because there's so few coins out there, it like shoots to the moon and it's a fortune already. So it's sort of like, okay, like I can accept the crypto logic, but also the reality is like it is what it is, this huge like, you know, this massive like pump for something that like has not borne out what it said it's going to do.
So this is an absolute nightmare for anyone that knows and understands what dystopian New World Order is. And this is exactly what it is. This is WorldCoin. And it's going to drastically increase economic opportunity. That's how it's being marketed, of course. It will not increase any type of economic opportunity. In fact, it'll enslave you into a universal basic income where you won't be able to make more money by working harder or anything like that, which is exactly what these brain-dead communists want. They want you to want a universal basic income, and they think it's unfair if somebody else works harder and somehow makes more money while one person's sitting playing Nintendo all day and the other person's actually out in the field working or doing whatever their trade is. Again, digital currency, universal basic income, and digital passport, digital ID, all linked to the mark of the beast. So in a blog post announcing the launch, the founder notes that if the project is successful, WorldCoin could drastically increase economic opportunity and present a reliable solution for distinguishing humans from AI online. This is another thing they're very, very hell-bent on, is making sure that everything you do online leaves a footprint. So in other words, for those of you that don't understand that, that's, for example, let's say there's a YouTuber who gets banned from YouTube, right? And that YouTuber never showed his face, and that YouTuber wants to continue to put content out there. Well, if there's a digital passport in place, that person will not be able to, of course, unless he scams and somehow uses other people's digital IDs. But at that point, you'll probably be thrown in jail when the digital ID is linked to everything. So your online behavior will be fully monitored. And that includes other people out there who watch that type of content, who listen to that type of content, who might read things on the internet say things about like the negativity of WorldCoin and how it's a bad thing. These are all things they want control over. They try to market these types of things to the dumbed down society. And again, I've been using true crime and those types of things as an example recently a lot because one, I keep getting shown true crimes every time I log into YouTube. And two, I think because I covered the Unabomber. And two, because I'm showing you these things and I'm bringing these things up because there's a reason behind it, right? There's a reason why all these shows, they scare you with the true crime, but then they tell you that all these cases end up getting solved because of CCTV or because somebody has the ring or somebody has some type of technology that enables them to track you. So it makes you say, well, this is great. The other thing that they do with the true crimes is the DNA, right? The guy in Idaho, they go, well, if it wasn't for this new DNA technology and being able to find his relatives who submitted their DNA to Ancestry.com, we would never have caught him. So this makes people go, well, if we get everybody's DNA, then all these things don't happen anymore. So they use subliminal messaging like that to get people to willingly give up everything to the government, who cannot be trusted. Then, of course, the government has more power to frame you and do all sorts of things, clone you, who knows, what they'll end up doing. And people are like, well, that's just a crazy conspiracy, of course, because, well, they don't think, right? So one of the other things that they do is they make everybody out there feel like a digital passport and a digital ID will be good. And what do they do to market that? Well, they say, well, people are doing bad things on the computer. And of course, people naturally say, well, bad things like what they're looking at with, revolving around children and stuff like that. Well, that does need to be banned, even though couldn't one just say, how do we even allow websites like this to even exist in the first place, or people to walk amongst us who support and do those types of things? But of course, we know who enables that. That's the government. But people will look at these things and they'll say, well, we need a digital password because it'll be safer for people, more protective for people. But really what it is just another spying mechanism for them and control for them over all of us, what we look at, what we see. And that doesn't mean the horrible bad things like that, because they don't care if you see it. That is about us. That's about people who are calling out what this world government is now doing and trying to show people that all these things that they're doing and the way that they're manipulating people with climate change and et cetera, causing these fear tactics, how they have the ability to manipulate whether anything. You can name anything. You can go back to the 11th of September if you want to talk about that. All that stuff, they don't want you to go down any rabbit holes, because if you do, you'll see who's at the end of the rabbit hole and who's behind it. And that same specific group of people, of course, are people that you cannot question or talk about. So anyway, as we continue on, in a blog post announcing the launch, the founder notes that his project, if the project is successful, again, the world could drastically increase economic opportunity. Like I said earlier, this would be achieved by offering users a unique digital ID based on their iris scan and a current currency given simply for being human. So you'll get a freak, of course. Well, I mean, that's the liberal world order, right? You'll get a currency given to you simply for being human, and of course, they'll scan your retina, and you're not supposed to be worried about that. So to register, users are required to first download the World app and then visit a WorldCoin operator who uses the orb. The orb will scan the user's iris to prove that they're humans. Following identity verification, users are assigned a World ID. And you might say, well, what does that even mean? Well, think about the propaganda that they put out there and think about how Google and everything operates now, right? I'm sure all of you have done a search before and it says, are you a robot? And you have to like click on sidewalks and then click the checkbox just to prove you're not artificial intelligence, some type of bot. That's been to condition people, okay? That's never been about, why would Google care if you're searching or a robot searching for something? They don't, obviously. These are condition mechanisms to get you prepared for the type of technology they want to roll out. So that's why they always ask you if you're a robot or not when you're signing into something, as if the robot couldn't click the box to say he's not a robot, right? Are you a human or the robot? The robot could do all this stuff and it could search, but it can't click a box and click on a sidewalk and identify a sidewalk or a fire hydrant. I mean, give me a break. And they don't just do it with Google searches. They do it with bank accounts. They do it, they make you use verification even on YouTube to get your channel monetized. You have to give a phone number. So these are all things that are leading towards a digital identity. They're just subliminal ways to do it, where they're starting to get a little bit of control, asking you for a little bit more, and it continues as people get desensitized to that. Because I guarantee you the first time you were asked if you were a bot, you probably were like, well, WTF, right? And you were like, why do I have to do this? And you were annoyed by it, right? Over time, you just get used to doing it, like tying your shoes, and it just is something you do without even thinking. That's why they do those things. They keep desensitizing you, and then you keep giving up more and giving them more to the point where they have total control. So at a time, and again, they use the AI-generated stuff where they're like, oh, you seen chatbot? We got to be able to distinguish if it's a person or a chatbot. That's all done by design, okay? Even the stuff they've rolled out with chatbot and how scary artificial intelligence is, that's another thing that they're using to their advantage to get people convinced that they need a digital ID so we can determine a robot versus a human being. So at a time when distinguishing AI-generated content from content by humans is growing increasingly difficult, driven by Altman's own creation, WorldCoin can prove to be a vital tool with its unique identification technology. Altman also hopes that WorldCoin will eventually also pave the way to universal basic income on a global level, which should be illegal, of course. I mean, if nobody out there, at the very least, and I know there's people out there who listen and don't like me and don't agree with stuff, which is perfectly fine. I don't know why you would still listen, but clearly your soul is tugging at you to at least find some truth. Why would anybody want universal basic income? There's nothing fair about it. Do you think that, let's use Joe Biden as an example, even though he's a puppet, or the Rothschilds. Do you think these people are going to be on a universal basic income? Of course not. So why should they not be on a universal basic income, but the rest of us should be? Does anyone think like that? No, of course not. So you shouldn't be rewarded for working harder than someone else? You want to be, you ever go to like Walmart and see like how bad things have gotten with employees at stores now, where they're like literally allowed to openly text and be on their phone in the middle of the store when they're working and they're supposed to be helping if you have a question, right? So if you work there and one person's just constantly on the phone or smoking a cigarette or has no interest in their job, why should they make the same amount of money as you if you're working hard? No, this is the world that they want to create because this is a world of control. And they tell you, of course, because they market to the dumbed down people, that it's about, well, the reason that that person is this way or this way is because of their skin color or because of their gender. And that's all done by design to convince people into communism. It's just a sleazy tactic that they use. So they go on to talk about when you sign up for WorldCoin, you're given a free token of the cryptocurrency. As of writing, the coin barely touches 2 cents in value. Wow, that sounds like a lot. You might be able to buy half of a gumball. But that's expected to grow quickly. Of course it is. If you wish, of course it is. To what? $1? If you wish to secure, when a gallon of milk's like $7. If you wish to secure your free token, you need to follow the steps. It goes on to give the steps about getting a World ID, about getting your biometric verification device that scans your iris, You can find the closest orb and book a time slot with the app or at worldcoin.org. I mean, how do people see this stuff and think that this is good for society? It's not. This is global enslavement. That's what they've always talked about, from saying we're bringing in a new world order to calling it a liberal world order. People just don't seem to understand that these people want to control and ruin your life. They should be able to see it after what they just did a couple years ago. And now they're doing it with the climate, which is another topic which I'll obviously continue to cover. So this type of technology is frightening. I mean, we all know that they're gearing us towards it, but what they have to do is create chaotic events to make people want it, because they know people aren't going to willingly sign up for this crap. So what they do is they create chaos and make you think that, oh, this is naturally occurring, or we're the ones doing it. Or they create psyops and say that these massive events and hackings are happening on the internet, so we all need a digital ID so we don't have all our money sucked out of our account. Meanwhile, it's our own governments around the world that are doing it to us. That's how this whole thing works. So this is just a ploy. There'll be psyops around these things to get people on board with it. They love to see how many people actually willingly sign up. They probably sit there with their feet on their desks, a pina colada in their hand. They're cracking up with a cigar in their mouth going, can you believe there's actually people willingly signing up for this? There's actually millennials and Gen Z or whatever they're called signing up for this stuff. I mean, they can't believe it, really. They're having a field day laughing at the brainwashing they've done to what they call liberal America. So that's the news, and this isn't just about America, this is worldwide, so keep an eye on this story. I thank everyone for being here again. Please subscribe to my backup channels if you haven't yet. Always a chance this gets a strike. Thank you again for being here, everybody. God bless you and your families.